If you're buying a mainstream chipset motherboard like this one with the AMD B550 chipset and you populate all the PCI Express slots and you expect everything to work smoothly, well, you might be in for a surprise. Recently, I bought this MSI B550 motherboard as well as a Ryzen 5 5600 processor. To give you a bit of context, this is what I've been using before. It's one of these motherboards from AliExpress for the LGA 2011 platform X99, which you use with cheap Xeon processors and registered ECC server DDR4 memory. It's been working fine. The processor has 10 cores, 20 threads, but the single thread performance is really bad. The Ryzen 5 5600 is much stronger in single-threaded performance. The cores are basically heaps faster. I do video capturing and also video editing. These are the components I wanted to use. A GeForce because of the NVIDIA encoder, an AVerMedia 4K capture card. This one uses the PCI Express 4X interface, and this is very important because this is really where I ran into some issues. I want Wi-Fi 6 to connect to the home network and also 2.5 gigabit Ethernet. This is mostly to review network devices. I bought the MSI B550A Pro because it has all the features I was looking for example, USB 3.2 Gen 2, as well as all the slots for my expansion cards. After assembling everything and testing the capture performance, I ran into an issue with the AVerMedia 4K capture card. It comes with a utility that tests the bandwidth of the PCI Express interface, and unfortunately, it fails the 4K 60 test. So there's something going on with the bandwidth. Now, if we look at the main board, the M.2 here at the top and the first PCI Express 16X slot, they are connected directly to the processor. The other PCI Express slots and this M.2 slot, however, are connected to the chipset. And I read the manual. I was aware that if you use this M.2 slot, the 4X PCI Express slot here will stop working. By the way, this looks like a 16X slot, but it's a 4X slot. So we're getting two 1X generation 3.0 and one 4X generation 3.0 that are coming from the chipset. In addition, we also have SATA ports, USB ports, and also Ethernet going through the chipset. Now, the chipset itself is connected to the processor with a PCI Express 4X 3.0 link. The capture card is PCI Express 2.0, uses 4 lanes, and the network devices are PCI Express 1X, and in terms of generation, either generation 1 or 2. And if you do the math and you add up the bandwidth of the slots, you should be good to go. 4 PCI Express 3.0 lanes, that's quite a bit of bandwidth. And also note, I'm not using the SATA port, I'm not using the other M.2 interface, I'm not using the onboard Ethernet slot, I'm not using USB 3 devices, but still, the bandwidth test on the AVerMedia capture card keeps failing. So next I tried removing devices and playing around with the BIOS options, and I figured out a combination that works. Basically, you need to disable the onboard Ethernet controller as well as remove one of the PCI Express 1X slot cards. So this means if you want to use the 4X capture card with the full bandwidth, you can only use one other PCI Express 1X card as well as having to disable the onboard Ethernet. So this is a heads up and a warning to anyone out there who's looking at buying a mainstream chipset mainboard for the purpose of content creation and maybe with the goal of using expansion cards in the future to upgrade to new standards. I'm really keen to hear what you're thinking. Now, on one hand, yeah, maybe I cheaped out and I should have bought a mainboard with the X570 chipset. That has a PCI Express generation 4 interlink between the chipset and the CPU, so double the bandwidth, and very likely we wouldn't be running into such issues. On the other hand, I studied the user manual very carefully before buying anything, and nowhere did it mention that you cannot use all the slots and the Ethernet at the same time. So I do feel a little bit misled as well, or at least there should have been a warning. For example, MSI points out that if you use the second M.2 slots that some of the PCI Express slots will not work. That is clearly advertised, but nowhere do they go into detail about that you can't use all the PCI Express lanes at the same time, or that there's a reduction in performance. And what is the point of having PCI Express slots on your mainboard when you can't fully use them? And I specifically picked out this board because it has a header layout for all my cards with the spacing, so I don't lose any slots if I use a double width GPU. So yeah, I'm not quite sure what to do here. I feel like maybe writing everything up and getting in touch with the shop I bought it from, as well as getting in touch with MSI to see what they think, because in a way, I feel like it doesn't do what I thought it should be doing, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I just didn't do my research well enough. So yeah, really eager to hear from you, and also let me know if you're interested in another video about the LGA 2011 X99 platform that you can get from AliExpress for very cheap costs. And in terms of capturing, this has been fantastic. I've been able to use all the PCI Express slots. All the slots are connected to the CPU. I think there's just one SATA port that's not connected to the CPU, but everything else you can fill all the cards and the M.2, and you get full bandwidth. It passes the AverMedia capture bandwidth test without any issues, and you can get processors up to 22 cores. It's just this single-threaded performance is what's letting down this platform. Thanks for watching, and I shall see you soon with another one.